We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It's Saturday, and as so often the case on Saturdays, Ed joins us. Welcome, Ed. And I've been particularly excited about this conversation that we're going to have with all that's going on with Signalgate, and given that you are a veteran and spent time in the service, and also spent time in intelligence. This whole fucking shit show has got to catch your attention.
Let me put it this way. If I had done anything like what they did, I'd still be in Leavenworth.
Still, I
It's
mean,
that
it would be in a
simple.
long time, really.
Oh, yeah. Plus, none of those people on that call that I can think of could have passed the kind of rigorous security investigation that is routine for low-level guys like me. I'm sure Hegseth could never have, based on what we know about his antics. Um,
Yeah.
One thing that would for sure get you washed out of any national security operation is drinking like he did and does. Because they know that you will spill the beans all over the place when you're drunk, especially when you have the kind of personality that wants to look big because you know something that other people don't know or something like that. Um, Everything about it was egregious. Everything was classified on that. I'll give you an example. When I was in Korea, one of the things that we got every morning was the weather report. It came in classified, top
Oh,
secret. The weather report was classified top secret. So anything, any reference to any sort of weapon systems or timing or attack or anything like that, egregiously out of bounds. It's just and to lie about it over and over again and to lie to Congress about it and use that lamest of excuses. I can't recall. If you can't recall where you were on Tuesday, then you don't need to be running a major intelligence operation, Ms. Gabbard. Jesus.
yeah. When I look at this thing, I look at it. My estimation is what happened here is you've got people who just don't know what they're doing. They're absolutely
Exactly.
incompetent, and there's a certain amount of arrogance to this whole thing that I can do whatever I want to do. Sure, this may not be right. A lot of people think that they went on Signal not so much because they were stupid, but because they were trying to cover up any kind of paper trail or digital trail. This is their spot where they can go under the wire and no one will ever know.
Absolutely. That could be the only reason for doing it. And we need to know who initiated the call. Who was the first one who said, okay, we're going to use this and I'm calling everybody up? Probably some underling actually did it, but somebody had to give them the order to do it. It falls at Headset's feet. I mean, he's the logical one. Heads need to roll here, and quite frankly, all of them, everybody involved there. One of those guys was in Russia at the time. He's a Russian negotiator on this quote peace deal, right? He was actually in Russia on what amounts to an unsecure line. Whether they were on personal phones or government phones or burner phones or whatever they were using, they were not really, they had not been cleared. I'm sure they weren't secure. Tulsi was somewhere. She can't recall where she was, but she was out of the country. She was in some foreign nation I mean, everybody spies on everybody. I just
Sounds
will
like
tell
she
you
might have
that
been in.
right now.
Sounds like she might have been in Hong Kong.
Well,
And
that's close enough to China, isn't
yeah,
it? It
and
is
and there
China.
yeah, and then there was a couple of other people. Who was it? Two other people were in Saudi Arabia,
Yeah,
and then
again,
Hegseth and
hostile
somebody else was
territory.
in DC. Yeah, exactly. So when they come out and this tells me how desperate they are when they come out and say, it's no big deal. It's a hoax. That says one of two things. You're lying and you're trying to get away with something, or you're too stupid to even realize what you did.
Yeah. Now, this is what really gripes me too. why is the news media not asking the simple questions I do? Why not demand that she tell you exactly where she was? And none of this I can't recall. If you can't recall where you were a couple of days before, you don't need to be in charge of the country's intelligence operation. And she certainly was never qualified for it in the beginning.
Well, you know what kind of gave me a little boost? I've been talking about the media and how they never push back, and that's the fact. If they'd pushed back at all when Donald Trump was first coming into the political frame, if they'd pushed back against him, he would never have been the president because he wouldn't have been able to handle it. He wouldn't have been able to explain it. But I will say this to the Atlantic:
Yes.
they included somebody from the Atlantic, not just anybody, the editor in chief. Wrong
Yes.
motherfucker to include.
Yeah.
And they said, I don't want to give out any classified information. He did the right thing at that point. But when they attacked him, which is common strategy, go after the
Sure.
person who's making the claim, they went after him. He didn't back down. He said, fuck it, here it is. Here it
Yeah.
is. Now explain that. Hopefully they learned a lesson. No, they're used to people backing down and saying, oh, okay, we won't mess with you. But the Atlantic did the exact opposite. And hopefully this is a sign of things to come with other media.
Well, I've even seen Fox News on occasion pushing back now, which is a good sign. I still think Fox News should be dismantled and all
Yeah.
and everybody there fired and possibly imprisoned. Some of them certainly should be for working. They're Russian assets. We know they are. Um, and it should be dismantled. But I do like to see that they are at least pretending to be journalists and pushing back somewhat on obvious lies. And really, we know that every administration stretches the truth, obfuscates, does things like that. But there has never, ever been, um, ever anywhere, I don't think, a purportedly free democracy, democratic government that lived by the lie. And from his first administration through every rally he's ever had until now, Trump lies about everything, and everybody under him does too. There is not one person that he put in as a cabinet minister who is qualified for the job in any way. As a matter of fact, they're anti qualified in most cases. They're put there to destroy what they're in charge of, whether it be the post office, the Defense Department, the Education Department, whatever it may be, they're there to destroy it. We see that. And the media has to say that. They have to push back. They have to say the unqualified secretary. That's what a responsible media outlet would do, is call it the way it is.
You know what the contradiction here is, and this is shows the ignorance and the uh, hypocrisy in all this. They're trying to say that these war plans that were put on Signal, and I'm going to ask you as somebody who's in intelligence, is there any way what they're suggesting that it not be classified information? Is there any way that's true about what you saw on those chats?
No,
It's just a
there's no
flat out
way.
lie.
It's a flat out lie. If you are referring to an operation, in every operation, you want plausible deniability for one thing, depending on what the operation may be. You don't even want to acknowledge that it is taking place until after the fact.
Right.
After the fact, you come out, you hold a news conference and say today at 4:05, elements of the United States military or Air Force or Navy, whoever it may be, in conjunction with, certain other, if you want to add that, certain other allies or so forth, attacked a Houthi base and did this. You would not refer to the specific elements used, the drones, the planes. No, you don't do that, because that in of itself just gave them a way to defend next time, to look for the drones, to know that the specific planes that are going to be used, because they can shoot them down if they know that they're going to be. They have. if they know they're going to be used. So just admitting that that was the plane that was used prepares them to shoot it down next time, to be prepared for it. Also, they had names of they named individuals, I believe, that they were going after, and that sort of thing. I haven't read every bit of it, but I didn't need to because I know that that was classified material. And if it wasn't, it should have been, and it was an egregious failure that it wasn't classified that way. But it was. I know it was, and they knew it was, and they just don't know what they're doing. They're
And
getting
here's the,
rid of the people. See, this is the deep state, is the people who do things.
yeah.
You know, there is no, that's a pejorative way of calling people who are there dedicated for years and years. They call them the deep state. I call them the people who do the work.
Well, here's a contradiction of all this with Donald Trump. He wants what he wants, the way he wants it, when he wants it, but he can switch it the other way. It's kind of like what he does with the law. He's very stringent about laws until they come against him, and then they should be freed up. But we have the situation where he puts this stuff, Hegseth puts this stuff on Signal. Donald Trump says it's no big deal. It's not a big deal.
It's a big deal.
Yet, two judges have said, listen, you can't send those people to Venezuela. Turn the planes around. The judges ask him to do something to stop it, and they don't. And then they say, explain to us why you didn't, because you could be charged with contempt of court. And what do they choose to do? They choose to enact some secrecy act or something. Oh, we can't tell you because of national security.
Yeah,
The real
bullshit.
national security, they don't give a fuck about. But when they want to
Right.
cover their ass because they know they fucked up, they know they did something wrong, they're all about secrecy and security.
Yeah, and the Trump administration and the Republican Party in general, and I'm talking about the elected officials and the party and all of that, they are criminals. They are simply, quite simply criminals. Um, from insider trading to disregarding all sorts of, the protocols and so forth. These people are criminals. They should be locked up um, for a good long time. I mean, we've got Guantanamo. We need to use it for them, not some low level, mostly not criminal immigrants.
You know, it was one of the most distasteful things about this for me was when I'm reading this chat, this text thread, it didn't appear as though professionals speaking to one another. It
Mm-mm.
appeared like a bunch of Green Bay Packer fans
Yep.
cheering on a fucking game that was going well and in their favor. We got fucking emojis. We got people making little jokes. We're bombing people, killing people, and putting our people in danger. And to them, this is just a fucking big rah rah session.
Yeah, and they should realize, and there should be a solemnity involved with it, because in every operation like that, and I've seen at least one enumeration by an outside group that checked in with what actually happened on the ground there. Was able to and there were many civilian casualties. At least three of them were children. So yeah, this is what they're yucking it up about. I mean, it's unfortunate. I don't support the Houthi rebels in any way, Houthi rebels, but um, I still, and there is, if there are civilian casualties, it's more than regrettable. It is inhumane.
Well, it is, and they act like this was some big win for them. To me, it seemed like just something Donald Trump wanted to do to show I'm powerful and maybe distract from some of the other horrific bullshit that he's creating on his own. This wasn't something that needed to be done at that particular time. Sure, we want to get the Houthis, but we've got a few other fucking issues. We've got a war in Ukraine. We've got a war in Gaza. We've got an economy that's sinking here. And he decides to go bomb something when I spent a year talking to Trumplafuck saying, them saying to me, well, Donald Trump had no wars while he was in office. Well, he had Afghanistan, he bombed now he bombs Yemen, and he's talking about bombing fucking Iran. Tell me this motherfucker isn't a war president.
Well, of course he is. He just wants to throw his weight around and congratulate himself for being tough. I remember his giddiness when they dropped the big bomb up in Afghanistan, the bunker breaker or whatever they called it. He was just giddy about that. There needs to be sober men and women doing this, and in Pete Hegseth's case, that is a recommendation as well. But I also question, and I have not seen this anywhere, the operations like this aren't done in a week. They aren't done in a month. It takes a long time to coordinate and to get it right because they don't want to lose any planes and pilots. They don't want to betray anything. Pardon me. I wouldn't be surprised if that operation wasn't long planned before Trump was even president.
Yeah, that's possible. That's possible. Or with Donald Trump, I wouldn't be surprised if they sketched it out in the sand the day before. I
Well, it
mean,
could
that's
be.
conceivable too with them.
Mhm.
What struck me so funny or disturbing actually is when Donald Trump was confronted by it and asked about it. He and I'm not talking about the bombing, I'm talking
Right.
about the signal thing. He didn't seem to have any understanding what the Signal app was or
Mm-mm.
what went on in that chat. He had no fucking clue. And then he said, I don't know why they're going after Pete Hegseth. He didn't do anything. He did a good job. He did a good bombing plan on Yemen. The motherfucker's the one that put out the information on the app. He
Yeah.
put out the information on the app, and Donald Trump does not. I don't know if it's just him trying to divert and distract, or he's just stupid, or some combination thereof.
Yes. Yes, yes, and yes. Number one, he is stupid. I doubt he knows what an app is. I doubt he knows anything about the technology of a cell phone, much less anything else. He has demonstrated over and over again that he has the comprehension of like a fourth grader, a dull fourth grader, by the way. He learned nothing in school because he didn't have to. He learned nothing in life because he didn't have to. He is lazy and stupid and immoral and in every way the worst possible person that you could have in any position, much less as the leader of a country. Also, right now, I think he's completely disengaged. His day starts, he gets up, he goes, plays golf, and maybe along the way, if he has to sign something or step in front of a microphone for a few minutes, he'll do it. But he falls back on his same crap. We're going to do this, we're going to do this, but they never do anything except bad things. And he tries to defend stuff that he doesn't understand. But like, for example, we have 4 soldiers missing in Lithuania right now in troop exercises. Well, that's not unusual. People die in troop exercises all the time. There are accidents. You're testing equipment. You're doing stuff that maybe you don't normally do. I've heard something about maybe their vehicle went into water or something like that. I don't know the details. He had no idea. No one had
No clue.
briefed him. And that should have been a priority, don't you think? You know, your president is going in front of a microphone. You know they're going to ask about these 4 missing soldiers. He had not a clue.
No, he had no clue. Um, yeah, the the. Let me ask you this: when you read the chat, I read the chat. What
Mhm.
I found interesting, and I don't know what the protocol for a bombing uh, strategy like this situation, but when they were all talking on the chat, they didn't seem to be too sure if Donald Trump was on board or not. Well, last I heard, it sounded like he was on board. I'm pretty sure he's on board. At the time of the bombing, Donald Trump was driving into his golf club somewhere and he was ready to golf. Isn't the process usually where the president gives the final go ahead? Or am I wrong about that?
No, you're not wrong about that. And what usually happens is that the president, the secretary of defense, probably the secretary of state, national intelligence people, and so forth, perhaps the joint chiefs chairman, are in the situation room. in the bunker. That's where they're watching it from, just like when Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama were there, along with all of those people watching the operation against Osama bin Laden when he was killed. That's what you expect when you're doing a major operation like that. The president is engaged and present.
It should be. That's his fucking job. But it just sounds like, well, as far as I know, in passing, Don's down with this, so we just get to make the decision. Pete Hegseth, Michael Waltz, Tulsi Gabbard, they get to make the decision of what's going, attacking another country, bombing another country. That has got to be far outside of protocol from what we normally do. And that just shows the arrogance and laziness of these fucks. They didn't even
Absolutely.
do this proper. I mean, that's something that has to be considered. Why wasn't the president engaged? Why was it on an unsecured app? Why were they acting like they were cheering on their favorite football team and taking high fives and fucking emojis? The whole thing is so amateurish and unseriousness. It's frightening because as I've said before, I said this before this ever happens. They will do some fucked up shit, but they will fuck up in their own right every time. Donald Trump does it every time, and he's got people in there that are just as dumb as he is. So we can expect fuck up after fuck up. My question is, how many times have they done this before? This is the first time they got caught. We don't know what they've done before. And if they're fucking talking from Moscow and Saudi Arabia, who knows who's tapped into what we've got? And what's the next fuck up? That's what I'm most concerned with. What's the most biggest fuck up you're going to do? And what's the fallout going to be from that?
Well, this is the thing. I mean, I fully expect then after Trump's first term, I'm sure when the Biden team came in, the first thing they did was change everything because they knew it had all been compromised, that it had
Right.
been spilled to Vladimir Putin from the mouth of Donald Trump in their secret meetings. Where, I mean, it was a public meeting, but we weren't privy to it, right? And I remember Trump taking the notes from the translators and destroying them so that nobody would know what he said. I'm sure he
Yeah.
gave up tremendous amounts of information. We know he was giving information to a stranger at Mar-a-Lago to try to impress him, secret material. We know he did that. He still does that. I think he also sold information to Saudi Arabia, huge amounts. I'm sure he has done it to other countries as well, probably to Erdogan and to any of these people that he admires, probably even Kim Jong un. He's probably giving them intelligence. It would not surprise me at all. I think that if they had allowed the case against him to go to trial for what the amount of for the classified material he stole, that he would have wound up in prison, quite simply. And it's a
Again,
shame. It is a shame on this country that he did not.
no question. I hear Trump-fucks come in, and when you talk about this thing, of course, they bring up Hillary. They bring up Hillary and her emails, and they bring up Joe Biden and the documents that were found in his garage or whatever. They want to shame Democrats into what they allegedly done, spin it off into them, but they totally disregard Donald Trump's mishaps with giving
Yeah.
away top secret information to Russian spies in the fucking Oval Office in his first week in office, or taking 37 cases of documents home and then hiding it from the FBI. They're trying to equivocate what happened with Joe Biden with this situation, totally disregarding the incredibly stupid, incredibly dangerous things Donald Trump does time after time after time. To me, this isn't a fucking surprise that he did
No,
this.
no, not at all. Zero
It's not even
surprise here.
surprising that they fucked up and invited a journalist in, and not just any journalist, the fucking editor in chief of the Atlantic. How fucked up stupid can you be?
Well, this told us one other thing, and I have not heard anyone say this, but to me, it said he was on that guest list or whatever you want to call it because one of those people is an informant. One of those people speaks to the media on the down low. One of those people is included him either on purpose or without accidentally because he was on some sort of list that they clicked.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think was going on there. I think somebody may have done it on purpose just to let the cat out of the bag because they see how abominably stupid and incompetent this group of people are. I mean, I would think about it if I were a professional, if I had some shred of integrity or more or morality, I would think about it. What can I do? Oh, beep, click the button. Now we've got a witness. Um, it could have just been stupidity, though.
Could have been just stupidity, but even for the other people on that chat, even if they're, say, Mike Waltz is the one that probably did it, or somebody who works for Mike Waltz. Um,
Mm.
but isn't it kind of incumbent on all the people that are national security in this country to take a look at that chat and go, now who's here?
Yeah,
We're doing this illegally. We shouldn't be on this app. So maybe we should check and see who's on the chat. And clearly nobody fucking did that. Otherwise they would have canceled them out.
yeah, exactly. So, oh, there's Jeffrey Tobin. No. Anyway, little side joke. Um, but
Yeah.
wasn't he the one who was?
And he's got his wiener out. I don't know what's going on with that.
Yeah, exactly. Um, it ain't over yet. I hope some heads will roll, or at least one head will roll. It should have already, especially Hegseth, who I have seen 4 different times saying, no, no one was texting classified material. Well, yes, they were. And it was you, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, it was him. As a matter of fact, the thing about it is there is another report going around, and I don't know if it's valid or not. But I understand, there are people out there that can hack into people's accounts, especially if you're not very careful with how secure your accounts are.
Yeah,
And this is stuff that people do when they're looking to hire people for jobs. You can track down emails, you can track down phone numbers, you can track down Venmo accounts because people just don't cover that shit up. Uh, this report says that they got Hegseth's phone number, they got his email address, and one of his email addresses is .ru, which is Russia, and
yeah,
Mike Waltz has one that's .ru, that's Russia. But, and again, I don't know that it's true, but it would not surprise me. They said that Mike Waltz's Venmo account was unsecured. Now, if you have a Venmo account, I never knew that either. I can go and look at whoever I sent money to, which
yeah,
is usually my wife or my kids. That's the only people I send money to, or somebody that we're sharing expenses with. But they were looking at the list of connections in Mike Waltz's. At least this is the report, and there are the regular people you'd expect, family, people you work with, but there were also a number of journalists on that
hmm
list,
yeah. This is
which
what
would
I'm saying.
which would suggest what you're saying is maybe we got a mole.
Yeah.
And do you think anybody on Trump's side is smart enough to think, hey, maybe we better look at that guy because he's the one that did this? Did he do it by accident? I mean, they're very fucking paranoid, so who knows? Maybe they'll go after Mike Waltz.
Well, I heard him trying to justify it, saying, "Well, like if you've got somebody else that you link to, and they're linked to this guy, it could pop up," which is bullshit.
That's
Um,
bullshit.
but yeah, I really do think that I, people may not realize that many journalists actually pay people for stories and information.
Absolutely.
So who knows? You know, who knows? I
Well,
do
now
know.
go ahead.
Oh, I do know that there's a real rat here that needs to be rooted out. I think our intelligence services have been suffering for some time. I do think there's some some elements in there that need to be rooted out, and now they certainly do. Everybody running. I mean, look at the FBI for God's sake. Cash Patel and Dan Bongino, give me a break.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like taking the dumbest kids in your class and make them class president and vice president. It just
Yeah, it's like Bill
fucking
Barr
makes it.
said, Cash Patel at the FBI over my dead body. Bolton, the same thing. Anybody with any integrity, although I may not share their principles, I do see that there's some integrity on occasion, it seems like, and that they are willing to step up and say that this Cash Patel he's essentially a low-level criminal, is what he
Yeah.
is, and to put him in charge of anything, especially something to do with law enforcement, is just ridiculous. I know that what Trump wanted to do is what he accused Biden of doing, which is to weaponize those agencies against his enemies, to investigate whoever to try to find something, and that's what they're doing now. They're going after judges, and you have to look at the House of Representatives now and say, my God, these people are saying that they're going to defund the federal courts. They're going to do away with the federal courts, which is insanity. They cannot do away with a co-equal branch of government, nor are they allowed to fuck with it. And
Well,
somebody needs to explain that to them very specifically and with a great deal of force.
well, something came out with the federal courts yesterday, and or maybe it just came out today. I don't know. Um, but the court said, "Listen, motherfuckers, you need to preserve all of those chats." What does that actually mean? And is that as ominous as it sounds?
Um, Well, it should mean that I know there have been a couple of lawsuits filed already by whom I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, there's going to be some sort of legal action. But also, in theory, the courts are, it's all tied to enforcing existing laws. So would they have to determine if laws were broken, and in order to do that, they have to have all of the evidence, which is exactly what it is, evidence preserved, so that it can be presented when these people are put up on charges, which they should be.
Well, and even if these people now, I understand this particular app has a setting where it stays up for about 5 minutes and then it goes away, and conceivably they've done that. But at least it sounds like the gentleman from the Atlantic has preserved all these things.
Yeah, I mean,
The thread
that
will be
was
there.
amazing that he was able to do that, and even more so that he had the guts to put it out there.
Yeah, well, his himself and the publication were taking a beating that was unfair. And I'm glad he had the strength to stand up and say, fuck yourself. Here's the deal. Keep talking, motherfuckers. Now, the other thing is, though, that Pam Bondi, the attorney general,
Mhm.
doesn't seem too concerned about this or really has any interest in doing any investigations. So how does does that mean that she would be able to subvert any criminal action on it? That
Probably.
it would have to be just civil,
Well, good question. Who does the charging? It wouldn't have to be the Justice Department, I wouldn't think. Um, she can only control that part of it, right?
right?
Um, so I do not know. That is beyond me as to who can charge them and what. I suppose there will be more. I was surprised they got him in front of a congressional committee as quickly as they did, and that the committee seemed to be actually trying to get to the bottom of this, not just Democrats, but some Republicans too. So that's a good sign.
I was surprised by that too until I found out what was really going on because I saw them going off on different topics. Every time a Republican came up, they were talking about the border. Every time a Democrat came up, they were talking about Signalgate. This was a hearing already set in advance. It's
Ah,
like an annual hearing about national security in general.
mhm.
Once again, leave it to the Republicans to fuck it up. They fuck it up one day, and then they got this hearing that's already set and has been set for a
Mhm.
year. So that's what happened. There will be more hearings, I would presume, here because
Yeah.
we're even seeing Republicans starting to push back. Not a lot of them, but at least some.
Well, this is the thing. The party in power, of course, is the one that can schedule hearings and so forth. The party that's out of power can do it, but they usually put them in a basement room over by the furnace somewhere, and a tiny little space or something like that. That's what the
Yeah.
Republicans do anyway. But we shall see. I hope, hopefully, this stays on the front burner for a while. The trouble with this administration, and this happened the first time too, they're just so all over the place and there's so much outrageous stuff going on by design that it's hard to keep the public's attention focused. The MAGAs, of course, have no problem with this. They could have done it on Facebook, and the MAGAs would have been just fine with it. I'm surprised they didn't use X, for example.
Yeah, no shit. I'm sure Elon's pissed off about that. He would have wanted exclusive rights on any top secret fucking information. And uh, every time something like this happens, Donald Trump does what Donald Trump does, and I find it kind of funny. This is going on. So immediately he goes into distraction mode. How am I going to take the attention away from my huge fuck up, my embarrassment? And I honestly think I don't know that you're going to get any criminal action on any of these things. So we got to take what we can get, and we've got to com- continue to push this in the narrative, in the media, in their faces, embarrass them every time they fucking make a move. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but unfortunately, it seems like that's all we got now.
Yeah, that's it. There is. I noticed that we picked up a Senate seat and a congressional seat
Right.
in the last couple of days. That's good. We got to keep picking away, right? I think there's a few more congressional races yet to be settled, so we'll see how that goes. That's what we need. We need to be able to have both the judiciary to a degree, because we know we don't have the Supreme Court, although I'm hoping that they are so embarrassed that they will try to secure their place in history, but not by not being total weenies as they have been. But there are some in the federal courts, at least, that are doing their job that they've been assigned to do, and that then they're doing it with integrity. I hope that can continue somewhat. But if we could get even one house of Congress, either the Senate or the House, it doesn't matter, we can forestall most of the bullshit that's going on now. As it is now, we cannot continue to compromise like we did with this spending bill, this continuation of the debt. We can't continue to give in to stuff like that. On. We have to be aggressive. We have to be on point and cut through the fog. Go after the important stuff.
You brought up the Supreme Court, and that's interesting because this whole Venezuelan thing and sending them to these immigrants to Venezuela. He went to one court, he got pushed back. He went to another court, he got pushed back, and he's trying to use the alien immigrant uh,
Enemies Act or whatever it was.
Alien Enemies Act, which
Yeah.
is a which is an act you use during wartime, and we aren't in wartime, and that's part of the reason why these courts have pushed back, and now he's dealing with trying to not talk to the federal court or the appellate court because it's secret. Well, they just sent that to the Supreme Court now, and it's going to be interesting to see how they react. Now, you were talking about the Supreme Court finally not being weenies or being embarrassed. But I think there's a bigger part of this, and I think it's starting to take hold based on what we've heard from John Robert and what we've seen of Amy Comey Barrett, I think they're finally realizing, and it's surprising that it's taken this long. If they continue doing what they're doing by helping Donald Trump, they're taking away fucking all power from themselves. They're
Exactly.
they're turning themselves extinct if they
Yeah.
continue to do it. And I don't think they're dumb enough to go that fucking far.
We hope not. I mean, the Republican Party in the House of Representatives has done that. They have done that. They wait by the phone for Trump to tell them what to do. It's that simple. They have given up any power of their own. They are merely yes men, and that's all they are, and that's all they really pretend to be now. It's what Trump wants, so that's what we do. The Senate, there's a little bit of integrity left there, maybe in a few individuals, not enough to make a difference at this point, but there are a few there. And but that's what it's going to take. The other thing I would say about the Supreme Court, this is a very small fraternity, and I'm not just talking about the court itself, but federal judges, from which
Right.
mostly these people come. They all know each other. They probably went to law school with each other. These are
Right.
the people that they fraternize with. These are the people that they can't pull the wool over their eyes. And they know that when they do something that is subservient to Trump and only that way, and that they're stretching legal principles and so forth, they know that all of those other judges know that. And they know they're being judged for it. Now, if they have any sort of integrity, if they want to have any sort of legacy, they can't allow that to happen. They have to fight back, or they don't care. Take your pick.
It's interesting. I think I heard this story. This Judge Boasberg, who's dealing with Donald
Yeah,
Trump in this Venezuela thing. You talk about how they know each other and are connected. I read a story that Boasberg and Kavanaugh were fucking roommates in college or something.
yeah,
It's just, I
exactly.
mean, these people do know each other, and you would hope that they would support the integrity over and above a dumb fuck president doing whatever he wants to do. It's been amazing to me how complicit everybody's been, the Republican Party. But there's been a little bit of pushback now. We've got the tariffs coming up again. Whenever Donald Trump wants to distract from somebody, he talks about tariffs. Now he's talking on April 2nd. Any cars made outside the country, 25% tariff. That's going to have a huge impact on the auto industry, on the price of cars, and the economy. In fact, the stock market is dropping again because he brought up tariffs. People
Yeah,
would say to me, people would say to me, well, the stock market's coming back up because he didn't say fucking tariffs.
yeah,
And we'll see if he actually enacts them. He has a tendency to threaten and then pull back because he's a pussy ass bitch. But Don Bacon, who is, I believe, a senator from Nebraska, he's
yeah,
introducing something saying, maybe giving the president the right to enact tariffs wasn't the right thing. We may need to look at changing that. Now, whether they'll
yeah.
be able to accomplish that, I don't know.
Probably not.
But it's interesting that we're starting to get some Republicans starting to push back.
Let's say we avoid the worst and that we actually are able to make a change in the midterms so that we take back the House and Senate. I don't think that is necessarily a pie in the sky thing. I think it could happen.
No, I don't.
And if they join together with the judiciary, we might be able to deal in a real way with this administration. I hope that's the case. But when that is all said and done, we have to elect a new administration with a strong leader and a strong cabinet and a strong everything so that there's a lot to correct. There's a lot of holes to fill that we didn't know were there. And that's one of them. Presidential pardons is one, and so is what we're talking about here, the ability to just, not having any economic background, just throw tariffs on just because you feel like it. They have to reduce presidential power is what they have to do, not give more. Because that was why they created three co-equal branches in the beginning. That was the strength of the country. We need to get back to that where we say, no, we don't want a robust president. What we want is an executive who works with Congress and the judiciary to do the best for every citizen. That's the idea of America. And we need to encourage immigration because that's what made America great. And anybody who says different is an idiot. Quite frankly, without the labor that immigration gave to this country, we'd still be on the East Coast. It's that simple. Without immigration, we're a small country on the East Coast, probably as significant as Britain.
Right. Well, you know, I think some of this is starting to hit home with the Republicans. They seem to be getting scared. And the sign that they're getting scared is when they took Elise Stefanik. They said, we're going to make you ambassador to the UN. And they go, no, maybe we won't. And the reason they did it is because she's a sitting member of the House of Representatives, and the margin is very thin for them. And I think the thing that scared them, you mentioned it before, there was a state senator in Pennsylvania who
Yeah,
died.
yeah,
And they ran a special election, and a Democrat won. And what was frightening about this was a district that Donald Trump won by 15%. And
yeah,
there hadn't been a Democrat sitting in that seat in 136 years. But now
exactly.
we have a Democrat. They're looking at what's going on in Florida, and Florida should be an easy win for the Republicans because Donald Trump won by 30 points down there. But they're probably not liking what they're hearing. And if those two go Democrat by some chance, not unlike the two senators in Georgia,
Yeah.
they're in fucking trouble. And putting up Elise Stefanik's job in a special election could fucking bury them. So they're getting nervous right now. They're worried.
Yeah, and that's good, and that's where I take my hope from. And we shall see. People die. I mean, I just saw Chuck, or the Iowa senator, what's his face, the 90,
Chuck Grassley.
101 year Chuck Grassley, who's 105 or whatever he is.
Yeah,
Uh, he's not going to make it out of this administration. Let's be
yeah,
honest. I mean, a friend of mine just died this morning who's younger than me, and that really ticks me off when they are younger than me, and I have to
yeah,
contemplate my mortality. I don't like that.
yeah.
Um, but at the same time, he shouldn't be there. I mean, I saw his town hall where he looked like a deer in the headlights. He couldn't believe that he was getting these questions from Republicans. They were not Democrats, of course, they were Republicans. People are scared about Social Security. They're scared about Medicaid and Medicare. They're scared about the national parks. My God. I mean, all of these national parks are in disarray because these, quote, probationary employees that they got rid of, these are people who were promoted into a new job and were probationary in that job, a large
Right.
portion of them. That's the way the system works, right? But they got rid of the people who knew how to do stuff. And that's what they're doing everywhere. They're getting rid of the people who know how to do stuff, including setting up some sort of conference call on attacking Houthi rebels.
Yeah, yeah. And that kind of stuff is going to, the national parks. The blowback's going to start during the summer months when people want to go out and enjoy a national park and won't be able to, or won't be able to in the way they're used to. Um, you've got it seems to me that what I think with Donald Trump is he has no plans, he has no thoughts. Whether talking about Hillary Clinton or talking about Pete Hegseth, he doesn't have any thoughts on this stuff. I think the way he does it is somebody says, this is fucked up because, or this is good because, and he just repeats what he heard with
Yeah.
no basic basis in understanding.
Yeah, I mean, like, and he's losing it too because I look at him and I see this tired old man, more so than Biden ever looked, except in late stages, like at the debate and so forth. You see this guy. staring at the cameras. He hears these questions, and like about the four missing soldiers, he hadn't heard that, or if he had heard it, he'd forgotten it, or just didn't give a shit, which is probably the truth. But I don't think he's involved in the day to day at all. Not at all. Stephen Miller, different ones like that behind him. And quite frankly, this has been uh, most Republican presidents, and I think I mentioned this last time, most Republican presidents since, I won't include Nixon because Nixon had his hand on the throttle to a certain extent, but his advisors were poor. Just a minute, Haldeman and Ehrlichman, right?
Right.
And different ones. He had bad advisors, but he still was in charge. Reagan
Right.
less so. James Baker ran both the Reagan and the original Bush White Houses. And then George W. had the guy he called Fart Blossom. I don't remember his name right now, but
Cheney.
well, Cheney was one of them too, but no, this guy was right in there all the time. I'll think of it in a minute, but or maybe I won't. But he was kind of a pudgy little guy. I mean, kind of sweet
Oh
faced.
yeah.
And but then he was there with Bush, and then Cheney did the foreign policy stuff. This guy was the domestic guy, and Bush, sat back and was jovial. And then with Trump, of course, he had his Stephen Millers and his. Who's the guy with the two shirts?
Oh,
Gross looking. Um, went to jail for a while for stealing
oh,
money.
Navarro.
No,
Navarro.
yeah. No, that's not the one. He's got a
He's kind of
beard,
gross looking.
yeah, scraggly beard. He was. He went to jail for taking money to build the wall and didn't do any.
Oh,
Just
oh, you're
stole.
talking about You're talking about Bannon.
Bannon, Steve Bannon. Yeah, these guys were running the show for him and a few others, but now we've got Vance is doing nothing. His little trip to Greenland, and they couldn't get anybody in Greenland to meet with him, not even people on the street.
Well, he wanted to go there, to further Donald Trump's hopes of convincing these people that they should be American, and they weren't even invited. And what the people in Greenland, from what I understand, they have a fondness for America over the past years, but now they feel like they're being bullied, and they're going,
Yeah.
"Fuck you." So when Usha Vance, and then she was just going to go, and that wasn't going to go well, so JD was going to go there, and what they intended to go there wasn't going to work. So they were going to do a security thing, and they couldn't find anybody to welcome them into Greenland. I mean, it's just an absolute embarrassment for these fucks. Did they still go, or are they still going, even though they don't want them there?
They did. They're there.
Okay.
Him and his wife. First, it was just his wife, Vance's wife, Sushi or whatever her name is. I'm sorry, I can't remember. And I don't mean to denigrate her. I don't know anything about her. I don't mean to denigrate her culture. It's just that I don't know her name, but it's something like that. Okay. She was going alone in the last minute. They added him in, but they were trying to find just like a typical Greenland couple to meet with them. Nobody would do it. And one thing, this totally off base, but it has to do with Canada. Okay, have you ever heard of the musical Come From Away?
No.
Okay, it's great, and I strongly you can find it on Apple TV. I think it is right now. Filmed a version of it. When they reopened Broadway after the pandemic, they filmed the first performance of this, just like you would have seen it in the theater, and it's running on Apple TV right now. And you may find it other places or not, but it's a terrific musical. But when 9/11 happened, there were all these planes in the air coming toward the United States, and we closed our airspace.
Right.
I mean, they had to go somewhere. Some went, to Mexico, wherever. But the biggest airport in North America was located on this little island on Newfoundland, on a town near a town called Gander, Newfoundland. It was built in the days when planes couldn't fly all the way across the ocean and they had to stop somewhere and refuel. So that's where they stopped. Gander, Newfoundland. So they have this huge airport there that gets very little traffic anymore. Suddenly, they've got 22 planes coming in with 7,000 people to this
Wow.
tiny town of Gander and a few other little towns scattered around. So they take all the people off these planes. They can't leave them sitting on the planes, and they put them in gymnasiums and people's houses and all of this, and they welcome these people from all over the world. And it's really a heartwarming musical, and it's all true. All of the characters in it are based on real people. And like there's an English guy and a woman from Texas who wound up sitting next to each other and wound up married when it was all said and done. So it's very nice. But there's one scene in that movie, or rather in that play or now movie, that always gets me. Um, a guy goes into, I think it was a gas station or something like that. One of the people from the plane, they're able to just wander around there because they're there for several days, right? And he goes in to get something, and there are TVs on the wall. And down in the United States, they're having a moment of silence for the Twin Towers and the people who died. And he walks in, and everybody at that gas station is honoring that moment of silence. And he said, and I stood there and I wondered, would we have done the same if it was for them? I
Good
don't think we
question.
would. I don't think we would, he said. And that was the difference between those people in Canada, and possibly that was his projection. Maybe some people would have, maybe they wouldn't have. I don't know that we would have paid attention, but they welcomed these people, all faiths, all races, all nationalities, and they all blended for that time in that tragedy. And it is so worth, I know I know you. Everybody would love this. If you haven't seen it, you must see it. It's probably the best musical. It's really rousing. It's really good. If you like musicals, or if you don't, it's a testament to what went on, how the Canadians reacted to 9/11.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, how the whole NATO contingent reacted and they were
And
willing to help.
I'm glad you said NATO too, because anything we wanted to do militarily in Greenland we could do because of NATO. I mean, they would have welcomed it, and the
Right.
money and everything that it would bring. We don't have to run roughshod over people, and we damn sure don't need to try to make a foreign country our 51st state. If you want to do that, Puerto Rico's ready and willing.
Yeah, Puerto Rico, DC. You
Hmm.
can make DC a state. Um,
Yeah.
you mentioned Canada, and what's interesting about Canada, the Canadian Prime Minister, Mark Carney, said something yesterday. He said that the tariffs on cars are a direct attack on his country and that the trade war is hurting Americans, noting that American consumer confidence at a multi-year low. He says this is a very direct attack. We will defend our workers. We will defend our companies. We will defend our country. And he said something very ominous. He basically, and I'm paraphrasing, that our relationship uh, with regards to trade and that stuff with America is done. That's what he said. It's done. And that's problematic because Canada, we count on Canada quite a lot for a lot of
Yes.
things, and they count on us for quite a lot of things. And the reason we do that is because it's so close and it's easier and it's cheaper to trade. Donald Trump's big issue is, well, we have trade deficits. We do more than they do. Well, they have less people than we do. They have
Mm-hmm.
less opportunity to do it. Donald Trump's under the understanding that we should all do the same, and that's just not feasible when we have different countries with different resources and different amounts of people, different amounts of money. For some reason, he can't get this through his head, and he's put us in a situation with Canada. I wouldn't say it's permanent. I think once Donald Trump is done, we'll be able to repair some things, but it will take time. But for the moment, he's pretty much fucked this country for importing stuff that we need that's valuable just by the way he behaves. Now, I also just saw that there's a report, and I don't know what came out of it. There was a phone conversation with the prime minister and Donald Trump about an hour ago. No doubt
Hmm.
Donald Trump is saying, I'm putting those 25% tariffs. Are you scared? What are you going to give me? And I'm afraid the Canadians are just going to say, fuck yourself.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that's why we had NAFTA, which was in place when Donald Trump became president the first time, right? And oh, he didn't like NAFTA. But we treated though Mexico and Canada differently because we're on the same continent. And we don't have to defend our northern border, for example. And they still only get a few pounds of fentanyl in, you know. We've never had to defend it. But now, in theory, we might. But we treated them differently than anybody else. That's why there was NAFTA. Then Trump and his people renegotiated something new. The one that he said a previous president was really weak on when it was him,
Yeah.
right?
He doesn't even
Um,
know that.
I know. See, this is what I'm saying. He's always been disengaged. His mind is on the golf course. He doesn't read the briefings. He doesn't understand anything. I'm not sure he can read, not in the real comprehensive sense of reading or understanding. But, I insult fourth graders by saying that he reads at a fourth grade level. I'm sure
Yeah.
they're far beyond him. But yeah, you have to treat countries like that better. We've always dumped on Mexico. I don't care who the president was. And I've always felt bad about that because most of the trouble in Latin America and below our southern border, most of the trouble there has to do with us as much as it does with anybody there. Whether it was gunboat diplomacy or, setting up banana republics, we had a hand in all of that. And most of the trouble that we see there now is just our chickens coming home to roost. And we have to face up to that at some point. That's one thing that Kamala Harris was doing. Oh, she didn't do anything about the border. She was working in the countries. She was improving. She was doing things that would have improved things there so that people weren't going to leave.
Right.
Didn't feel that
Right.
they had to leave to survive. Because when it comes down to it, if it's between leaving or surviving, you're going to leave. It's that
Don't you
simple.
don't you think that him bringing up these tariffs on April 4th, I think is when they're supposed to take effect, or maybe the second, him bringing up the tariffs again, bringing them up in the news, and also announcing that they fired 10,000 people from the Department of Health and Human Services. Don't you think this is just his lame, childish, immature attempt to distract away from what was going on with Signalgate? I mean, he's willing to do
Yes.
something fucked up to cover something up that's fucked up.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
unbelievable.
I absolutely think that's true. And what he wanted to distract from, we're never sure. But this is an obvious case. But yeah, he knows he has the power to do that. He doesn't have the intellectual ability to come up with anything else. He doesn't want to listen to anyone else or anyone else to get any credit for anything. So yeah, I do think that's the case. And I did. I was encouraged to see that the CEO of Honda, number one, corrected his Trump's lies at that joint session of Congress when he addressed them, where he said Honda is going to build a new plant. No, they're not. I think it was Louisiana or something like that. But they said, besides, we already invested $3 billion in your country in building things under President Biden. So
Right.
this is another thing. They're going around now, and where there were signs put up about where the money was coming for infrastructure projects, like this is, they've changed it and put up Trump signs on all of them, so that
Yeah.
people think the money's coming from Trump. And it's like down here. I'm very close to North Carolina, where they had all of the really terrible floods from the hurricane a while back, and FEMA's been there the whole time, they tried to make it sound like that they were shorting North Carolina to give California everything. It was bullshit. They've been there the whole time. They're still there. They have ads on TV every day. If we've lost you, call this number so we can, help you out and that kind of stuff every day. And he wants to destroy this. He wants to take away, destroy FEMA, turn it back to the states. The same thing with the education department that they're trying to destroy. I just saw a senator or a congressman from Kentucky saying that the money that we receive in Kentucky from the education department is more than the entire um, budget of the state.
Yeah.
And if that goes away, he says he wants to turn it back to the state. Where are we going to find that $7 billion or whatever that we get to put into our schools? I misspoke there. I think it was that the money they receive from the federal government is much greater than the domestic product of Kentucky. They're,
Right.
like a lot of the red states, they take more than they give, back in tax money. So there is no money. There is no way to fund the schools if that money goes away. And it's tied in. It's going to go away. That's why they're getting rid of the Department of Education so they can get rid of the money. They don't have to send it to the states anymore. And here in Tennessee and other places, they're sending it. They're trying to privatize it anyway. Even though there's no way they can build enough private schools to accommodate everyone, and it's just insane stupidity.
Well, if they take away the money for like special needs kids and special needs programs and want to send it back to the state, make it their responsibility. Some blue states may be able to do that to a certain
They
extent.
will.
There still will be some difficulty, but if you're sending everything back to the states, what is the motivation for a blue state to send the federal money to the federal government? I
There
mean, it's
is
like
none.
even the biggest oligarch in the world would say, if I'm investing in something, whether it be a hedge fund or us investing in Social Security, what's wrong with expecting a return on investment? And the same would be said for the states. We send this money to you and we get this in return, which should be just a natural progression. You stop sending us the money. Why would we send you the money? We need the money to keep it in the fucking state. That's the short sightedness of all this shit.
Well, this is the thing that I think they lose sight. A lot of the people who came up with some of these plans and stuff probably had what they had in mind was the idea of turning the clock back to the point where it was sink or swim for the states. There was no federal money much going to the states except in really dire consequences. Basically, what they would do is just take care of national defense and a few other things like that. But that's why there were two-lane blacktop roads and dirt and gravel roads all across the country. Route 66, when I was a kid, was the only way you could drive across the country. There were no interstates when I was a kid.
Right.
It was two-lane blacktop, and maybe in some of the cities, LA and San Francisco, New York, and places like that, they might have had a few four lanes.
You
Yeah.
know, we're seeing how Republicans now are taking a hit, whether it be cutting jobs or funding or just all the things they're doing, and we're still seeing people buy into Donald Trump's bullshit. I'm almost to the point right now where I think that the only way people are going to wake up, some people are going to wake up in this country, is when we have some kind of horrific disaster, whether it be financial, whether it be natural, or whether it be a terrorist attack. I almost feel like that has to happen before some of these dumb fucks actually wake up.
And they won't then. They'll just try to blame someone else, just like they're doing now. Here comes Pete Hegseth, just climbing all over this, the editor of the Atlantic. He's discredited. He's blah, 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 none of which is true. And it's an easy check. He's never been discredited on anything, and it really technically is not partisan. I've seen as many hard-hitting Atlantic articles on Democrats as I have on Republicans, and I've been a subscriber for a long time.
Well, and my question to Hegseth would be, if he's so discredited, how did he end up in the chat? How did
That's
he end up on somebody's fucking phone? How does that
exactly,
happen?
exactly. Man, he must be some super spy or something to wheedle his way in there, huh? No, it
Well,
was an obvious fuck up, right? And yeah, they were talking about classified material.
well,
Absolutely.
and the way they try to divert this thing is, Mike Waltz and others in this group are saying, well, we're looking into how this journalist got in there. We've got the best technical people looking at how they got in there. And they're ignoring the fact that whether he was in there or not, what you were doing was illegal, was inappropriate, was dangerous to this country. But they still want to divert over and somehow blame the journalist or blame technology. Something deep state's trying to break into our shit. Here's the fucking thing. You got one guy in Russia in this chat. Don't worry about the journalists because you know the Russians were listening to this fucking thing with no problem at all.
Yeah, and they could have very easily. We know that the Russians and Iran are tied together, and we know that
Yeah,
Iran supports the Houthi rebels.
right.
So they probably it would have been very easy for any Russian listening in to send that over to Iran and Iran to the Houthis. Very, very simple. Yeah, why was he even talking about it? Why would he need to be in on this conversation when he's in a friggin' foreign country? He didn't.
Well, and Hegseth was just doing this because he's a fucking cowboy. Look how cool we are. Look how strong we are. Emoji this, fire emoji, a fist emoji. I mean, it's like we got a bunch of 13-year-old girls talking about some reality TV show. It's
Yeah.
really unserious and really embarrassing. And don't you think what do you think that does as somebody who's worked in intelligence? What do you think that does when something like this is exposed and it's embarrassing? This has to make all other countries really nervous about trading any information with us at all.
Oh, it
Anything.
absolutely, absolutely does, and this has already happened before, when Trump was releasing information to the Saudis about Israel, for
Right.
example, just talking off the top of his head. Let me tell you a story real quick. You remember the Pueblo? Do you remember anything about that?
Kind of, not a lot.
The Pueblo was an American intelligence ship, right?
Right.
And it was in territorial waters off North Korea. Kim's father's was in office at the time. His grandfather was dead. His father was in office, and he wasn't in it yet. But anyway, there was a storm at sea. There was a problem with the boat, and it drifted into Korean waters, and it was captured by a Korean gunboat. Took a long time to get the crew back and everything. And what they should have done, where I worked, can I tell you that? Listen, we had measures that would destroy our equipment if we were under threat, so that other people, the core comms, would not be able to deduce what we were able to, the equipment we had that would allow us to be able to access their information.
Okay.
Okay, Pueblo had those too, but they didn't use them. It was messed up. So by the time I arrived on my job in South Korea, a lot of the technology that we had been using, we could no longer use because it was compromised. And we had to come up, that not me, but people higher up had to come up with different methods for us to use in order to gather information. Only just because the Pueblo was taken, that compromised a tremendous amount of intelligence gathering apparatus, let's put it
Right.
that way. So anytime that happens, anytime information like that, it not only tells them the the particulars. They were using F-18s, they were using drones, they were doing this or whatever. But it may also give away how we were able to, what we can see. They were talking about specific targeted individuals. That lets them know that we can do that, for example,
Right.
that we can
Right.
find, we know where these individuals are, and we can target them at a specific time. That's huge information that you do not want them to know.
So what do they do now that a signal has been compromised? What do they just move over to fucking WhatsApp or what?
I was thinking they just go to Facebook. It's simpler, you know.
I'm sure they could do it on YouTube too. That would be
Yeah.
easy. And everybody can access YouTube.
Blue
Um,
sky, lemonade.
any any one of them. So w- what do you think the fallout from this Signalgate is? There'll be some courts, there'll be some lawsuits. Pam Bondi won't do anything. Is the embarrassment of this big enough to do some damage to Donald Trump, even with the Republican Party?
Well, let me put it this way. If Pete Hegseth were a quality individual, he would have resigned yesterday.
Yeah.
Um, and Tulsi too, because these are the people who should be in charge, right? They're at the top of the heap of their individual groups, so they should fall on their sword, so to speak. They won't do that. There will be hearings and this and that, and depending on what else they were able to find or something like that, to figure out how this happened or whatever, it'll be in the news for a while. And unfortunately, unless the Atlantic and other real reporting organizations keep it alive, I don't know what'll happen. We'll see. We're going into the weekend. Things tend to die over the weekend.
Yeah, they do. They do. How important was it that when they first talked the first day and we first heard about this conversation, Tulsi Gabbard in front of Congress? I don't know if she was under oath, probably not. She said there was no classified information. Mike Waltz said there's no classified information. Pete Hegseth, who was not at that meeting, said there was no classified information. Clearly, there was. There's no two ways about it. It was
Right.
classified. Um, a normal situations, an administration would fire all three of those motherfuckers, I would
Yeah.
think.
He would ask for their resignations, or they would have tendered them already if they were professionals, but they are not. The governor of South Dakota has no more business being ahead of the intelligence gathering operations than well, I would actually be more qualified than she is. I've passed a background check, and I have, I'm aware of some procedures, low level procedures for sure, but I'm aware of how to treat classified information. I would be far more qualified than her, as would anybody who has ever served in any intelligence gathering group at all would be more qualified. She's the governor of a state that has no people. They have one congressional representative, for God's sake.
I have a feeling if I was having a background check by a Republican administration and they looked at my social media, probably would not pass.
Not,
Probably
not
would not pass.
likely not. Yeah.
Not this crazy motherfucker. I often think about that. I think about my granddaughter, and I'm going to have a grandson here in May. I'm thinking about 20, 30 years from now, somebody coming to my granddaughter going, "Is that your grandpa? What the
The
fuck is
boomer?
he saying?"
Hopefully you're
I don't know.
still saying it. Mhm.
Yeah, hopefully I'm still saying it, but we've all got limitations in life. I I think what's going to happen is this fuck up will be perpetuated. And if the Democrats are smart, they will keep it in the narrative instead of just backing off like Chuck Schumer. I mean, you had to be pretty disappointed with Chuck
Oh,
Schumer,
yeah.
what he did. And people say, well, he couldn't have done anything either way. Well, he could have got loud and could have got pushed back because if nothing else, it would give the perception to the people that we were being led by fighters. And while perception might not have changed anything, I think it's absolutely crucial that Democrats now want that kind of action. And what Chuck Schumer did was just pussy ass bitch stuff. I think he needs to go. Is there a way to get him out of there?
Yeah, they can vote him out, and they may do it. I think there's already a groundswell to do that within the Senate. We'll see how much power he has. Um, we'll see. I think it could very well happen. I get very, very tired of Democrats who say, well, we can't be too far to the left. We can't be AOC. AOC and Bernie Sanders right now are touring the country together and playing to crowds that Trump would envy.
Yeah.
People are coming out. Yes, make Bernie president. Yeah, let's go. We haven't been to the left in so long. The left the last left wing president we had was Roosevelt. I'm sorry, but it's true. I'll say maybe LBJ, maybe. He fucked up with Vietnam though, so that lowers his star just a little bit. But the last true and the last left leaning administration we had was Roosevelt's. I really think that Francis Perkins and um, Eleanor had more to do with the social um, significance of the Roosevelt administration than Franklin did. But that was the last one, except for LBJ. Clinton was Republican light. Obama was a little better, not nearly good enough. He messed up on a couple of things. We should have codified Roe v. Wade. He thought well, we can do that later. Um, and Biden was just barely left of center, if he was left of center at all. He did better than I expected, quite frankly.
Well, yeah, he did better than I expected too. And people will say, well, Biden was a lefty. That's what the Republicans would say. He was not. He never has been. He's been left of center, but like you say, just barely. And part of that was because he's so old school. He and a lot of Republicans
Exactly.
like or Democrats like Schumer and some of the Nancy Pelosi, they're playing by the rules of the 90s. And there is nothing comparable now. This is a flat out street fight, and we need fucking street fighters. Like, it's funny to me that Republicans in the House want to censure Jasmine Crockett for saying
Hmm.
that Greg
The
Abbott was
truth.
Hot Wheels was a hot mess, and
Yeah.
um, they cannot believe that she had the audacity to say that about somebody who's handicapped. I saw a reporter pull up the video of Donald Trump admonishing the handicapped journalist. And the guy just said, well, I'm just worried about my colleagues in the House. They can't even acknowledge that Donald Trump has done that. It's such a hypocritical standpoint, and this
Yeah.
is what the Republicans do. Any little thing they can grab, they try to make it big. And I think the Democrats need to learn a lesson. We've got a big thing. Let's make it bigger.
Yeah, I'm
Let's
with
not.
Tammy Duckworth. She called
Yeah.
Hegseth a fucking liar. And yes, he is.
Well, yeah, absolutely. He's a fucking liar. And people will say, um, well, that's not respectful. That's not appropriate. You can't call him a fucking liar. If he's a fucking liar, you should call him a fucking liar.
Yeah,
Donald Trump
let's
is a fucking liar. He's proven.
the yeah, I mean, I don't approve of coarseness in public discourse per se. I try not to do it. I let the F bomb fly on here once in a while because I'm relaxed. But I never did that during my broadcast career, nor did you. And we were on for six
Not
hours
on,
every morning.
not on the air.
Right. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. But we felt like it more than
Yeah.
once, I'm sure. But we learned to sublimate that portion of ourselves while we were having public discourse. Um, and I really would prefer if people did that. But at the same time, if the guy's a fucking liar, call him one.
Well, and if they're doing the same, people would say to me now after listening to my on TikTok and podcasts, You got no business talking shit about people who are coarse. You're a coarse motherfucker, and I am. And the reason I am is because all those times you wanted to be, you
Mm-hmm.
couldn't because you had people above you or companies or organizations that you worked for. And I saw this as an opportunity to say exactly what I feel, the way I feel. And we had people, even when we try to go a little off the basis, we'd have somebody who was younger and dumber than us say, "You can't do that. That will never work." And I take great joy. I take great joy in doing exactly what I want, the way I want, and getting more listeners and more viewers than that fucking radio station ever got in their lifetime and get paid more than they ever fucking paid me to do it. So I feel vindicated in that sense. Maybe they should have listened to you and I. We could
Yeah.
have done some things bigger if some dumb fuck didn't think he was boss.
Yeah, well, I feel the same way. Every pledge drive, somebody would come in and, oh, we've got to do this. This is the hottest thing. This is this. And I said, I know what works. I've been doing this for 25 years. I know what works. You leave me alone. I will give you the numbers. And when they did, we always did.
Yeah.
Every time we will always be the weekday leader and in day part. And part of that was because we were on first, of course. But the other thing was we knew how to pace it. We knew how to do it. We didn't beg. We let people know. We appealed to their intelligence. And it worked every time because we knew our audience and they were looking at some sort of generic audience, and there's no such thing. Every radio station has a specific audience, and the people who are on the air and interact with them on a daily basis are the ones who know, not the people who sit in an office.
Well, when you and I sat in front of a microphone on a radio station, same thing with me and you sitting on the internet doing what we're doing. We know who our audience is. We know how
Yeah.
they react. There will be people coming to me, family members, and say, "You can't say that." I say, "Yes, I can." I
Mhm.
know exactly how they're going to react to it. And I know exactly what they're going to react badly to. That's part of doing what we're doing. We listen to other people who are responding to us. And yeah, sure, there'll be some people that don't like us, but the vast majority do. So you give them what they want. And unfortunately, in the radio business, it's about consultants and what works on 20 other stations. People are different. People are different. Nobody would think that a 65-year-old man could come out here and call somebody a motherfucker and that anybody would pay attention to him. But they do. Nobody would think an old guy in Tennessee could tell these great stories and anybody would care, but they fucking do. We're
Yeah.
talking about people and we've got to know how to interact and keep their attention and hopefully inform them of things. And unfortunately, everybody wants to put it down to an algorithm or some kind of formulaic strategy to get this done. People are fucking people. You draw the people you draw, and if they don't like you, fucker, who cares?
Yeah. One of my favorite summations of consultants was from an old curmudgeon I worked for. He owned the station at Faribault when I was working my way back to the Twin Cities from the hinterland. And
Yeah.
people kept pushing him to hire a consultant to modernize the station. It was a farm station. He was making money hand over fist. He knew what people liked, what they wanted to hear, and he dominated southern Minnesota. And he told me a consultant is somebody that nobody will hire.
Yes.
You know?
I've heard people explain consultants as guys with a suit and a briefcase who live at least 50 miles away. And
Yeah,
that's pretty much it. I never
yeah,
met a consultant that knew fuck all about fuck all,
yeah.
honestly. And they paid a lot of money. Well, Ed, we're going to wrap things up. It was good to talk to you. I really wanted to talk to you about this whole intelligence thing because I know a little bit about it, but I know you know a lot about it, and it's been very helpful to clarify some of this shit.
Well, the first thing you learn when you go into the intelligence wing of the United States Army is that you better not fuck up because there are penalties. And
Yeah.
they are dire in many cases because keeping things on the down low is important or people die. And they impress that on you and you learn it, and that is what you have to go by. And you see this cavalier attitude they have doing on this app that's easily that just bridles me. The hair stands up on the back of my neck, and I want to swing something at these people.
Yeah, and these are the same people worried about TikTok getting information sent to China, and they're
Yeah.
fucking doing it straight away. Donald Trump said something, and what I've gathered from you here, Donald Trump said, "Well, I think Mike Waltz learned his lesson." As I understand it, with security breaches, they ain't no second chances.
Nope, there is not. If I had a guy tell me, uh, do it this way or you'll wind up in Leavenworth and be serious about it, I'd have a lot of money because that was the
Yeah.
go-to.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Ed, let people know where they can find you. You told me about a story that you had last week, and I went and looked at it. Great story. Tell people how they can find you.
Okay, you can find me on TikTok. It's the whole address is Reelin, REALIN apostrophe Reelin in the years at Holler Troll, and that'll do it. But just at Holler Troll will get you there. I've
Yeah.
got one up now about communication and hollering, and the one that did really well was had to do with DEI. That's gotten a lot of really good feedback on that one. So yeah, there's some stuff there. There's some short stuff, just observations. I do text things with music, and then the longer ones are kind of like what we do here, only on a specific topic of some sort or other. Working on the one about veterans.
Yeah. Yeah. Check out Ed's stuff. He's a great storyteller. I've known him for a long time, and I think people will say that in the comments too. I love when Ed's on. He explains stuff, and he's old, so he can go back to the Civil War, knowing that he'd
That's
been
right.
there, knowing that he'd been there.
Just
Anyway,
missed it by that much.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, those of you listening, thank you for taking the time to do that. I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.